Fantastic. I think I've taken my mute off, so hopefully you can all
Yes, you
hear me
have.
all right.
So this is Peter. We have not spoken in person, or not even in person, but by phone or text or any other way. But so first, it's nice to meet you, and secondly, you know, we appreciate you joining us. Certainly, and not necessarily at the last moment, but kind of the last moment. And thanks to Lexi for setting this up from your public relations firm. Let's just talk about you for a second, if we can, and that is that what was your background that brought you to Rendever, and then we'll talk about Rendever. And let me say this first, if I can, to everyone, and especially for those who this will be recorded or is recorded for those who are joining us. But the what's interesting about this is that we've been doing this probably, Tara, close to 2 years, and we've had some interesting technology as part of this podcast. And we've had the gentleman from Zine who won 2 Academy Awards, but also designed a wheelchair that is revolutionary to help folks with issues stand up and move faster and get around. And that was it's certainly something that is life changing. And so we like the technology, certainly, as part of this podcast, and it's really the basis of this podcast in terms of helping people age in place, um, with who have a variety of different issues. What one of the issues that two issues that come up, I'll say, frequently, are one is falling, and we have folks, Sue Haviland, who's been part of the aging place, and others who are very much involved in helping seniors and organizations prevent falls. And the other, and probably just as important, is loneliness. And that's, we're looking for folks to join us for the podcast. That's one of the issues that we're certainly keen about, and that's how I came across Rendever. And so I hope that others on this podcast and those who listen to it later on certainly can see how this can affect and change the lives of the people that they work with. And aging in place is very much can be lonely, as if you're 90 years old and chances are your family has moved away for the most part, or you have friends that have been your age and have passed away, and you need some engagement. It's engagement that can change not just someone's lives, but prolong their lives. And that's, and again, it's like, why do I have you on here if I'm doing a commercial for you? But nevertheless, that's what attracted me to Rendever, and attracted me to you, and what you folks are up to. So, with that, how did you? What's your background, and how did you get to where you are now?
Absolutely. So thank you, Peter, and thanks for having us on. It's a great opportunity to talk about what we do, which is we reduce the impact of social isolation and loneliness through the use of a really fantastic technology. My background started, my career started in marketing and advertising, where I really came to understand and grow passionate about the voice of the customer and the end user, really, and creating customer profiles, value propositions, and things of that. Just really understanding how products can succeed in the marketplace. I then transitioned throughout my career to embrace more strategy work, more general management within organizations. I went back to school 10 years after joining the workforce, and got a business degree, uh, so that I could offer more to the organizations that I was working with. And one of those organizations that I got started with was a solution accelerator that had received a significant amount of funding to accelerate the pace of validation testing for technologies that are meant to help older adults age well and age in place. And it was through that experience that I grew very passionate about supporting older adults. And I heard someone once say to me, it is unacceptable for us to be prepared to hold the same standard for aging for the next generation that exists today. And I think that's something that I think about on a daily basis. We want to make sure that this process gets better. Uh, Through the time that I spent at that solution accelerator, I had the opportunity then to go and work for an organization that was based out of the UK that was driven by AI-based technology. This is really interesting tech that it came to understand patterns of behavior for older adults and was able to identify how shifts in pattern of behavior could represent a decline in health and well-being. That was a really fascinating technology. And then I transitioned from that group to Rendever. an organization that when I joined about 4 years ago, we had about 150 partners across North America and Canada and the United States. And my role when joining the organization was ultimately just to sort of take care of our partners. That was my general mandate, was to come in and make sure that we had a process in place so that Rendever really put the customer first, and even more important than our customers, the end user, and ultimately the older adults. And it's I think through that and another of other initiatives that the organization has grown considerably over the course of the past 4 years. We're now very proud to have over 550 partners across North America. We have over 600,000 older adults that are using virtual reality through any number of our platforms. And I get to say this, but it's true. We focus on, and in fact, we are mission driven to reduce the impact of social isolation and loneliness through the power of shared positive social experiences. And we just happen to use really cool technology to do that. So that's maybe a bit of a background about me. I'll pause there and see what you want to talk about.
So I guess, I mean, there's a lot to this, and I guess we've talked a lot about seniors in this case adapting to technology. In other words, I can remember not that long ago that we all had flip phones, and it was a big deal for my folks to have a flip phone if they ever used it. And then now, what you're talking about is really advanced technology for a market that you wouldn't normally think would be tech savvy. So what's the leap that you folks took to get seniors to adapt to what is something that would be considered, a teenager playing video games on or something? How did that leap take place?
Yeah, it's such a fantastic question. We talk often, in tech deployment in general, you see adoption, right? It's one thing to get a beautiful new toy. It's another thing to get that beautiful toy used more than one or two times. And so we focus on deployment with the purpose of adoption. And one of the things that we've always been very focused on with this technology is designing it with the end user and the older adult in mind. You can walk into a Best Buy or anyone in any store and purchase a new VR headset, whether it be a Pico or an Oculus or whatnot. But coming off the shelf, those devices aren't really designed with the older adult in mind. They're designed for a younger user. And so what we did is we took virtual reality and designed it in a way that makes it much easier to use for people that perhaps aren't as tech savvy as other generations. That said, I believe it's important to recognize that older adults across the board are getting far more comfortable and tech literate than ever before. I think of my parents now, who are more than happy to text and do FaceTime, and they use, when my dad comes over, he's looking down at his phone the whole time, and he's reading the news or surfing another app. But the key for us with VR was to design it with the older adult in mind, and then aside from the user interface, making it enjoyable and easy to use and ultimately adopt, but also the experiences that are built on the platform need to resonate with those end users. You talked about loneliness and isolation. We know that certainly in senior living communities, 40% of senior living residents are going to experience depression and isolation during their stay, and that social isolation leads to a considerable increase in risk for things like dementia, heart disease, stroke, etc. By creating a platform that is designed very specifically with the older adult in mind, and then populating the VR system with experiences based around the interests of older adults, things like animal experiences, things like travel experiences, things like education experiences, or things that are focused on history. What we've been able to do is build a platform that is really focused on what older adults are looking for. And so when they put on the headset and they take a trip to the Taj Mahal, or they take a trip to the church where they were married 20 years ago and stand in front of there, they're experiencing something that connects directly with them. And I think that's a really important part of what we've done.
Do I get as much of the experience if I share it with somebody as if I was just looking at it on my own?
So we believe, and we've built our platform, that the way to address social isolation and loneliness is to create positive shared social experiences. And we often see and we often talk about the magic really happening when the headsets come off. And what we mean by that is it's one thing to take a trip and stand in front of the statue of David and see how big it is, or it's an experience to go to the top of the Eiffel Tower and look out over Paris. It's completely another thing to be able to talk to somebody about that shared experience and what it felt like to stand in front of the Statue of David, what it feels like
Mhm.
to look out from the Eiffel Tower. So those positive shared social experiences, where they're done sitting, whether or not they're done sitting beside somebody physically or sitting beside somebody virtually, the opportunity to share that experience and to talk about that experience is where we believe that we're really solving for the loneliness and isolation issue.
And well, I mean, stuff unfortunately just pops into my mind while you're talking. And one of the things that we talk about a lot, certainly in Aging in Place, is memory loss. And it's almost like if you saw Tony Bennett in its last special, didn't really he couldn't really appreciate where he was unless or talk unless he was singing, and because he knew the words and everything else. It's fascinating from that standpoint. If I have this experience with virtual reality, can that shake my memory?
The beauty of this is that we get to live these amazing stories in real time. And so I've got a deep library of examples. But what I can tell you, Peter, is that particularly, so our platform is used fairly extensively for older adults that are living with cognitive decline. And what we have found is that leveraging certain features within the platform to take individuals to places that are of personal significance to them will often generate really positive outcomes. And what I mean by that is we can take somebody to a restaurant where they had every one of their birthday dinners, or we can take them to the site of their honeymoon or the hotel where they stayed at when they went on a family vacation. And when we do that, we're able to tap into memories that otherwise are either inaccessible or difficult to access. And so we work with a number of partners, as I said, across North America in their memory care units to deploy Rendever in a very specific way to tap into the long-term memory and to generate positive outcomes, positive emotional responses. We've got a story of an older adult who had been nonverbal for 6 months. This was an individual who was sort of the life of the party, and then started to decline fairly rapidly. And then when we put the Rendever headset on, we went to a couple specific personal locations. All of a sudden, the individual lit up, was smiling, and was communicating with members of the community. And so we see this often, and it's a great example of how we're able to do exactly what you're describing, supporting older adults living with memory care, tapping into some long-term memory, and really creating special moments that otherwise we wouldn't be able to create for not just the older adults, but also the family members of those older adults.
If I ran into you in an elevator, given all what you just said, what would your 30-second speech be about what you do?
That's a great question, Peter. What I would tell you is that through the power of virtual reality, we're able to create experiences for older adults that they would otherwise never get to experience. We're able to reduce the impact of social isolation. We're able to take individuals outside of the four walls of wherever they're living and give them the opportunity to check off bucket list experience that they would never get to do. And we do it in a safe way, and we do it in a way that allows them to share those experiences with the people they love.
That's fantastic. I mean, and obviously that's your mission as well. So,
Yeah, it's
do you get requests from people? I mean, you mentioned you have 500 partners or so. I assume, in that sense, either they are partners, much like a home care company or a memory care facility. Are they also distributors to help you sell Rendever?
we do. We work with a number of partners, and we look at a number of different business models that are going to help our business scale. Distribution partners are certainly one of the ways that we've looked at helping grow our business and helping scale our business. Primarily, though, we've been working with a business development team that exists within Rendever. It allows us to have a far more personal relationship with those partners that are looking to acquire Rendever, use Rendever, deploy Rendever. We're a very mission driven organization, and what's really special about our group is that everybody has a story tied to uh, an older adult, a grandparent, or a parent. Mine is that my grandparents moved here uh, towards the end of their time, and uh, I saw my grandmother pass first, and then I saw the impact of loneliness and isolation on my grandfather, and I saw that firsthand. And for a couple of years leading up to her passing, my grandmother was quite ill with cognitive decline and nonverbal. But my grandfather got up every day, and he got her breakfast every day, and he got her sweater every day. And this is, he got up every day for her. But when she had passed, that social connection was gone, and he very quickly began to deteriorate. And you would hear any one of these stories from anyone within our organization. So we've done most of the business development work internally because of how passionate we are about our mission.
And are you a manufacturer as well, or am I taking, or you taking Oculus or something similar off the shelf and then gearing it towards Rendever?
We build all the software, and we work with external hardware partners to get our hands on that hardware.
Okay, and then are you getting requests for content all the time as you grow? Are people saying, I need this experience of being at the Super Bowl, in 1967 and freezing, or you have those kinds of things all the time?
Yeah, I mean, 1967 is a year that's special to me. That's the year the last time the Toronto Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup. I wish I could go back and experience that in person. I don't know if you picked that year on purpose, but yeah, and I think one of the beautiful things about getting these requests is that it shows we have a very engaged partnership with the organizations that are deploying Rendever. I mean, when we get requests for experiences, it's telling us that our partners are communicating with older adults. They're engaged in what is resonating and having an impact, and they want to see more of that on the platform. So what we do is we have a very good process internally that when we get these requests that come in and they are substantial, we make sure that they are all logged and that they're all reviewed by our experience team. And then what we do is we review them, or I should say our experience team reviews them, and ensures that they really align broadly with the interests of older adults across the board. As I mentioned earlier, we've got some pretty clear categories that we know as we've grown are going to do a great job in hitting home runs with older adults. And so we do our best to deliver on every single experience request. Obviously, we can't do 100%. But even in those instances where we can't give someone, the experience of sitting in Maple Leaf Gardens and watching the Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup, what we can do is we can tap into the ability to travel almost anywhere in the world. And if we're not able to give someone a specific request that they'd like to experience, we can certainly take them almost anywhere. And that's a pretty powerful thing to do for individuals who otherwise may not have the opportunity to leave their home.
And can I send you, let's say, pictures of my grandchildren or pictures of my wedding 60 years ago, and you can make content out of that?
Absolutely. In fact, our platform is, this goes back to designing a platform that is specifically designed to address social isolation and loneliness. Family members of older adults have the ability to log onto our platform and upload photographs and upload videos, and they can do it for videos that are shot on a mobile phone, a smartphone, or they can actually do it by uploading video or photographs that have been taken with a VR camera, 360 camera. And then those experiences get loaded onto the platform, and their loved one can watch those videos or look at those photos in the VR headset. As an example, a member of our team, the Nick, who leads up our business development team, he got married a couple of years ago, and his grandmother was unable to travel to the wedding. He got a beautiful wedding on a beach. So Nick brought a VR camera, and he had somebody hold the camera and filmed the entire thing. And then that night, he uploaded it to the platform. His grandmother put the headset on, and she watched the wedding as if she was standing right beside Nick during the ceremony. And that's one example of what we're able to do to bring older adults closer to events that they otherwise wouldn't be able to participate in, or to use the technology as a way to look back on photos uh, from years past.
Well, it seems it's all about sharing the experience, and
Yeah,
that's a big deal. That's a huge
it,
deal.
it's a very big deal. And as I said, one of the things that we've looked at and we've made sure to build into the platform is the ability not just to share those experiences with somebody who's sitting right beside you physically, but being able to share the experience with someone who may be down the street, in a different state, in a different country, or even on a different continent. If two individuals have a Rendever headset and those headsets are connected to Wi-Fi, the platform has the ability to put them together. We have two-way voice communication that is used with those headsets, so they can talk back and forth as they're standing in front of the White House, for example, or wherever it is that they'd like to visit. So you don't have to be physically together. You can actually be separated. And we've also built out the ability to actually sit. We have a waiting room. Our platform has what's called a waiting room. So when you put the headsets on, before you actually launch the experience, individuals are put on what we call back porch environment. So it's quite beautiful, along the same theme as Ronnie, your background, right? Sort of woods and nice sort of outdoors. And what we find is often people will put their headsets on and they think the VR experience is sitting in the waiting room, that because it's so beautiful. Uh, but we've now built it out so that when you get into that waiting room, actually you're represented by an avatar, and you can look to your left and you can look to your right, and anyone who's wearing a headset that's part of the same system, now everyone's sitting in the same room virtually. And if you're separated by, as I say, states, countries, continents, whatever it might be, we can actually bring people together virtually in a way that we think is pretty special.
And a couple of things. One is that if if I wanted to play chess with my father in Florida, could I do that living here in Texas virtually?
Yeah, so I mean the answer is yes. That I mean we you would have to have, if you wanted to play virtually and have a chess board, that's something that you require software to do that. We don't have a chess game that's built into to our system. But theoretically, sure, Peter, if the right software exists, you can absolutely do that. As I said, it's not part of Rendever's platform. We don't find chess is one of those games that for our population may not be the most important, but as I said,
It was
theoretically it
just
could be done.
off the top of my head. Just in something there I can engage my father in that we can have that time together, and I could let him beat me.
One, you're a better son than I am. I uh, but what we do have is we've got an entire section on our platform that is based on applications, and a number of those applications are interactive applications. So we have our balloon popper application that allows two individuals to come in and pop balloons as they come up over the horizon. We have an I Spy game that allows people to play I Spy together in a virtual environment. Our Rendever Fit system, which combines the power of physical exercise and virtual environments and social connections, allows individuals to exercise by riding a bike, playing ping pong, or virtually painting together with other people. We keep scores, we log high scores, frequency of activity, and things like that. So if you wanted to compete against your dad using our Rendever Fit system, you could cycle as quick as you can, and you could challenge them to beat your high score.
Okay.
And we could definitely set that up for you. But now you
I
got to
well,
win.
well, there's a reason why you couldn't, but I won't get into that. It was my hypothetical dad.
Yeah.
so, so the other thing too is that we haven't talked about price, and I know there's a price section on your website. But can you give us an idea just in terms of the different levels that you have, and who each level is really for, and just ballpark in terms of what this might cost? And actually, the other part of it is there. Let's say that is there grant money for someone, let's say through the state or somewhere else, that I can get some grant money to bring this into my facility or to someplace, in the aging center here in town or something along those lines, just as one more way to engage people and get people in the door, more importantly, just so that they can get them out of the house and not be as lonely. So,
Yeah. So, what we've done is So let me address the grant question first, because I think it's a really important question. We work with a number of partners in identifying grant opportunities, in drafting grant applications, and then supporting the deployment of those funds to acquire a VR system or Rendever system for one location or multiple locations. And these vary by state or province. They vary by sort of based on whether it's the United States federal government, the Canadian federal government, or any other government around the world. But there is a wide range of funding opportunities and grant applications that are out there for partners to apply to and ultimately source those funds. And it's something that we work very closely with our partners on because we're well versed in this type of thing, and we've got a pretty good idea on how to write these grants in order to get the benefit to our partners. In terms of the pricing, the truth is it varies considerably depending on those systems. So, and depending on the size of the partner and who we're working with. But what I can tell you is that we've been very intentional in building a platform that has a fit for any group that's looking for it and any partner that might be looking for it. And so we've done that intentionally, right? We know that needs vary across the board, and it's something that we've ensured. When we do have those conversations, we typically ask individuals, what does success look like? Why are you looking to acquire a system like this? How big is your group? What is the deployment that makes the most sense for you? And then what we do is we start having conversations around price, because we want to make sure it's a good fit for whomever we're talking to.
Okay. And so it's not one size fits all, is really, in a sense, what you're saying.
Yes, I would agree with that. And in fact, one of the things that I often say when talking with one of our partners, or certainly when I'm talking with some of our new partners, is it's not a question of whether or not there's a good fit for Rendever with you. The question is, how do we make it the right fit for you? Because we've got different features on the platform. We've got video experiences. We've got our Rendever Fit platform. We've got live programming. We've got our Explore feature. There are a number of ways to use the platform. And when we work with partners, the very first thing we do before they even get their system is we have a conversation about what does success look like to you? How do you want to deploy that system? So that way, when we train them on the system and when we coach them on the system, we do it in a way that reflects what success looks like to them and meets their goals.
And there's just, if I'm thinking about this, there's some folks on this call who are in the business that I'm in, the reverse mortgage business. And we call on home care companies, certainly. We call on certainly assisted living centers, the idea being that one spouse is in assisted living and the other one is at home and needs some way to pay for it privately, and the equity is in the home. Are there questions that we should ask while we're in, or even in front of a family, or in front of an assisted living director, or somewhere along those lines? And it's not, I think it's just not even asking whether they've heard of you, but what do you do? Probably it's something along the lines of, how are you engaging your clients to feel that perhaps they're not lonely, or they're just engaged. And I suppose the answer would be, if the answer isn't, if we need help, then that's when, just as what we would do is just reach out to you folks and say, this might be somebody you want to talk to. Does that make sense?
It does. I believe the first thing to do is just be very direct and say, how are you addressing the issue of social isolation
Right.
within your community? I don't know if the group knows this. The U.S. Surgeon General did declare social isolation as a public health crisis in the United States in 2023. And so understanding that this is a public health crisis, I would say, it almost requires senior living communities to take this very, very seriously. I'm sure we've all heard the statistic, right? Social isolation is as detrimental to somebody's health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Like this is a real problem. And so the first question I would ask is, how are you addressing this problem? And then the second question that I would ask is, how are you leveraging the power of technology to address this problem? And what are some of the technologies that you are either looking at or that you have deployed within your community to improve the aging experience? Obviously, I could tell you uh, that we think Rendever should be in across the board, every senior living community, every adult day center, every hospice organization, sure. But I think what's important for this group to really understand is that when you're having these types of conversations, if the organizations that you're talking with aren't embracing technology and aren't embracing the deployment of innovative technology to improve the aging experience, to me, that's a bit of a flag. Whether it's Rendever or whether it's any other technology that's out there, if organizations aren't embracing this today, then it goes back to what I was saying. One of the first things that I said is, to me, that's an organization that is accepting the standard for aging today. And I don't think that's something we can do. We need to be seeking to improve it. It needs to get better. We need to make it a priority, and technology can help us do that.
Can you go on a, have you thought about going to a subscription model or a monthly payment model for someone to do this? Can they finance it?
We're a SaaS company, so we're a software as a service company. So that would be certainly the business model that we operate under.
Okay. And also, it's you start thinking about where seniors gather. And if I'm in a senior facility, it may just be in the community room every day, and I'm watching Price is Right, and then I'm playing cards for a while and getting a meal, and so certainly having a system available there certainly makes sense. Same time, for those who do get out, it's a place like the public library. We certainly have met with plenty of seniors in libraries because they're safe, they're open during the day, they're comfortable, and you can certainly see that this would be a way for someone to be engaged, not just by reading, which could diminish over time, but just to have that experience, for no charge.
I would say absolutely. And as a matter of fact, we have deployed in a number of libraries across Canada and in the United States precisely for that reason. They've reached out to us because the older adults are coming to them and are interested in new activities. I can also tell you, like, some of the most successful deployments that we have are with those communities that put Rendever in the common room, so that when older adults are walking through the community, or when they sit down in the common room, they see other people using it and it piques their interest, and they become, hey, what's this? What's that group of 10 people doing over there? Why are they all oohing and awing and trying to pet something that's not there? It generates fantastic interest for the older adults. It drives adoption, right? I mentioned earlier deploying with a focus on adoption. Well, that's a great way to adopt the technology. And it also provides opportunities to expand the number of people that are enjoying it. Our platform can also be cast to a smart TV. Because the way that it's built is that we have a tablet that is networked with VR headsets. And we did that because the tablet allows the facilitator to really drive the experience, and then the older adult can just sit back and enjoy the experience. And we had communities come to us and say, we've got far more people that are interested in this experience, but some of those people that are interested don't want to put a headset on. And we said, hey, that's no problem. Here's how you can cast the experience from a tablet to a television. And so we've created that functionality that allows you to expand considerably the number of people that are interested in experiencing Rendever. In particular, our live experience, our Rendever Live, which we deliver 8 hours, at the top of every hour, Monday to Friday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. We do this so that they can not just enjoy it in a VR setting, but they can cast it to a television. And now you go from having or being limited by the number of headsets, which could be anywhere from 2 to 10. Now you could use all of your headsets, and you can fill your common room with 20 to 30 older adults that want to play trivia Wednesday at 4. Oh, and by the way, when you play trivia, you get to submit answers. The facilitator in the Rendever offices is calling out the names of the people that are submitting their answers, wow. Celebrating birthdays, right? Like our partners across North America are submitting, saying, hi, everyone, want to make sure that everyone knows it's Peter's birthday today, and they submit that to the chat. And then the person who's leading on our team will call out Peter from such and such community, thank them for attending Rendever Live again. So we're really building this remarkable community through our live programming, something that accelerated considerably when COVID started, but has really continued to grow for us since the sort of intensity, I would say, of the pandemic has eased off.
We'll open up to questions in a second. Just have one more question while I'm thinking about it. What's the holy grail for you folks? In other words, what's the one thing that would just blow this up to where you'd have that kind of distribution that just makes us a household name? Is it the ARP? Is it, a relationship with Google or Apple or something along those lines? I mean, I'm sure you think about this all the time. What's the big fish out there that would just separate you from anything else?
Well, I think it's partnerships in general, and it's one of the areas that we focus. You mentioned AARP. We have a great relationship with AARP. We also have fantastic relationships with some of the largest senior living operator groups in both the United States and Canada. And I would say, for us, the Holy Grail sits in the growth of current partnerships, because that helps us, that really helps us extend our reach considerably and quickly. And then obviously partnerships with some of the large groups that you mentioned would only help us not just improve the platform, but really expand the reach and the awareness.
Interesting. Hey Tara, let's open it up for anyone with questions for David.
Sure. Is there anyone? This was really interesting. Thanks so much. Any questions out there? Yes, Ronnie.
I have a question, and that's what's the cost, or what's the model here?
So as I mentioned before, there's lots of different structures and there's lots of different sizes. What I can tell you, Ronnie, is that the way that we've structured it is when you acquire a Rendever system, there's a cost for the hardware.
That's what I was going to ask. You mean the headset?
Yeah, so there's a cost for the hardware and the onboarding, and then there's we built it as a subscription model for partners.
So is that like for things that are like one-time costs, like the headset? Is that a separate price? Meaning, I call it the product from the service.
Yes. I would describe it as sort of two different line items if you were looking at it like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just
absolutely.
wanted to confirm that. Thank you.
Sure.
So this isn't something that I, as an individual, can have just with my mom. I'm in California, she's in Georgia, that we can just talk back and forth, or is it more of a large scale that you're partnering with?
Tara, it was originally built for senior living communities and B2B. Although one of the things that we have been testing and researching is how we can use Rendever as an alternative to things like Zoom calls, for example. So what we're doing, this study we're funded through the NIH, and what we are studying is the impact of visits that you're describing, right? You're on one coast, you have a family member on the other coast, you both have VR headsets. Instead of having a Zoom call, you put your VR headsets on and you pre-select videos that you're going to watch, or you've created a set of visits that you're able to do. So we create an activity guide. So in fact, you can do exactly what you're describing. We're in the process right now of gathering a lot of research around that, which is really going to empower us to launch it in a really substantial way. So the short answer to your question is yes, it can be used that way. The long answer, I suppose, is what I just gave you, in that we're gathering a lot of research. It's exceptionally promising, and we're looking forward to making it more widely available to everybody shortly.
Yeah, I just see, my 6-year-old daughter has an assembly at school every Friday, and if my mom could feel like she was there every single Friday, like what a way to connect with her and know what she's doing without being here. I think it would be amazing. Any other questions?
Like we just had relatives stay here for Christmas. It would be much nicer if they didn't come and that we just did this virtually.
Rebecca, yes. Bye, Jennifer. See you later. Thank you for coming. Oh, you're muted, Rebecca. Sorry. You're, can you unmute? No? Do you want to type it? I know you're on your phone instead of your computer today. Okay. All right.
You know what I think of, and David, I'm sure you've thought about this too or seen it. It's like films from the '50s where you see the audience all wearing 3D glasses in the movie theater and just feel like they're getting a punch in the head, and the whole audience just like leans back as they're getting hit. I can see this to where if you had a room full of seniors in a community center that while you're driving through the mountains of Monaco or something like that, that they're all leaning all in one direction and then leaning another direction. You know, it's probably in some ways like a video game that you feel like you're in. Am I right?
Yeah, and it is. It can be really beautiful to see, Peter, because as I say, we're able to take people to places and experiences that they thought they'd never have, period, or that they thought they'd never get to revisit. But when you hear the ooze, and I was like, one of our most popular, if not the most popular video is the swimming with dolphins video. In fact,
Oh wow.
never before have we generated more interest and feedback from our partners than when a couple of years ago we removed it from our default playlist
Mm-hmm.
as we were updating our playlist. And I mean, I still laugh about the volume of feedback. If we ever wanted to get people's attention, now we know how to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
But that experience when you're in person and you see a group of older adults with their headsets on, experiencing that and oohing and awing and leaning this way or leaning that way, it makes um it makes it all very, very real. And when you see it happen in real time and you see the enjoyment, like when someone's, we've got another one where like a giraffe is going to come right up to the camera and start sniffing the lens, and people always sort of recoil because the giraffe gets too close. uh, I think that just sort of speaks to the experience, how immersive the experience can be for people, and how fulfilling it can be. Again, and I talk about this all the time. It's the ability to check off bucket list items that we thought people thought they'd never be able to check off. We've got a great story of an older adult who was celebrating her 90th birthday and wanted to go skydiving, and her family, unsurprisingly said, "No, we're not going to do that. But here, put this headset on, and let's all put the headset on, and let's all go skydiving together." And that, it's not the real thing, obviously, but rest assured, I mean, I've done the skydiving video. It's real, and I think that person got the experience. We get to see things like that all the time.
And just out of curiosity, who films these? In other words, if I'm skydiving, am I filming it on a GoPro and then charging or trying to sell it as content to folks like you?
Yeah, I can assure you, I'm not the one filming the skydiving video. That's for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
We work with third-party providers, and then we're able to acquire the rights to load those videos up onto our platform. We do, under some circumstances, produce our own videos. You asked earlier about requests that come from partners. Some of our partners do ask for specific videos. We work very closely with UC Health in Colorado, for example, and there's some very specific experience requests that come from them that we wanted to capture. I think the most recent one would be the Colorado Avalanche Stanley Cup Parade. So we got out there, we recorded that. We've done some recordings as it's related to the basketball team out there. I think it's the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
So we can, in some cases, produce videos and upload them onto the platform for some of our partners.
And that may be as close as you come to a Stanley Cup parade.
Certainly this year.
Being a
Certainly
Toronto
this year.
Maple Leafs fan.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you for the kind reminder, Peter. That's I know it all too well.
I'm a Flyers fan, so we're almost in the same boat.
Okay. We could have our own call of sorrow later, I suppose.
Yes. Any other questions from anyone before we end the call?
This has been great. I would love to see a silent disco with older adults. Have you ever been to a silent disco? Anyone on this call? It is so amazing. Of like everyone with their own headsets, everyone listening to whatever kind of music you want, but you're all in the same room, and it's like you walk in and you hear nothing, and all these people are just dancing. It's amazing. I'd love to see that. Susan, you've done it. I did it in Las Vegas actually last time I was there. So in a parking garage, which level you were on determined the type of music you were listening to. Super fun. Anyway.
How fun is that?
It was fun. I'd like to see it with older adults. That would be fun. And a flash mob.
There's some content for you, David. It's
Right.
Disco Fever.
Yeah, I do kind of like that idea. I'm going to take that back to our experience too.
That's
So then Tara gets a royalty.
Absolutely.
Well, Darren, yes, did you have a question? Darren's my new friend from Oxford. I'm glad you joined us.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks, Tara. Yeah, just a quick question, David. With regard, and it goes actually back to what Tara mentioned about pairing really intergenerational learning. Something that's happening here in the UK at the moment is a notion, and again, looking at reducing social isolation and loneliness, is within care settings, residential care settings, adopting someone that may be lonely or socially isolated with a younger person. And I wondered in that context whether or not that might be something, especially the live scenarios. I think that's fantastic. So that intergenerational learning aspect, in terms of whether you've given that any consideration.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. Darren, the answer is yes. We've had a number of conversations internally about this in certain states in the US and provinces in Canada. High school students are in fact part of their curriculum is to volunteer and use volunteer hours, and some individuals use those volunteer hours to support older adults, whether they're living at home or in community settings. It's definitely something we've talked about. It's definitely something where we see an opportunity. It's just not something that we've really wrapped our arms around in terms of operational deployment. But we have had, as I say, definitely internally, we've had some conversations with some of our partners, and it would be those partners that have pre-established relationships with maybe some of the academic institutions that surround their community that allow us to do it. The nice thing about that is, again, going back to, I think, Peter, what you mentioned right at the beginning, and then I sort of said, obviously older adults are getting better at technology, but there's still a big group of people that are intimidated by this tech. It's getting smaller. And by bringing in a younger generation, by setting up the intergenerational learning opportunities, we can then bring people in who it's the opposite of perhaps being tech averse. They can't wait to jump into the experience. So we have looked at it. We've had some early conversations, but anything that we deploy, we want to make sure that we deploy in a way that is very scalable and continues to add value over time. So we just haven't really wrapped our hands around it quite yet.
It's interesting. And again, going back to the beginning, this is what, I inherited, I think, through Tara, the Hidden Gems podcast and hosting it. But this, to me, this hour has been pretty much what this is all about. And that we have all these issues with seniors, whether, again, being loneliness or falling or anything along those lines, and certainly plenty more. And it's a technology that's changing all these problems for the better. And it's access. To me, it's access more than anything else in education. And that's why I was asking you about in libraries or community centers or whatever, because the more people that have this, the less issues they're going to be, and the less expensive the cost of care is going to be long term. So I appreciate what you folks do. And again, I appreciate you joining us, because to me, this is what we're all about for all of us that are in the aging in place community. So.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think, Darren, I saw you put your hand up.
Okay, sorry.
I found it really fascinating. Just another quick question. In terms of your live settings, are you able to take, say, a residential care home within a specific setting, let's say the UK, to a live concert or a backdated concert of X, Y, and Z?
What we're able to do, so first of all, we'd love to, definitely in the UK, would love that. What we can do is we've actually gone and recorded concerts, and we put those concerts up on our platform. There's, of course, there's copyright issues and you have to get the right permissions, but the short answer is we can do that. We can get the recording, we can get it up, and then we can get on our platform. We have a number actually of concerts that have been loaded onto our platform. We've got recordings from Red Rocks out in Colorado. We've got some symphony and classical performances. That's definitely possible. In terms of live performances, we have delivered live musical performances through our live programming. It becomes more complicated when you want to do some of the big acts. So, I think broadcasting a Rolling Stones show on our platform may have some challenges there. the big groups obviously would be more difficult, but we can record and we can upload with the right permissions, and we've definitely done it.
Yeah.
Or I was just thinking back in my case, concerts that I went to that I don't remember.
Exactly.
It just leads on to one more question, and that is with regard to, again, music, but going back in time to say somebody's past, let's say 1940s, 1950s, and then assessing the cognitive improvement in relation to the memory recall in that moment. Is that something you're researching? Because we do a bit of research in the UK in that regard, and I think that would be fascinating too.
So with regards, I'm not sure that I can speak to all of the research. Our director of research, Dr. Stamps, would be I would want to defer to Dr. Stamps about some of these questions. What I can tell you though is we know that we've seen some of the research results that we've seen indicate that older adults are reporting, like 100% of people are reporting that their social network scores are going up. I think we've seen 80+% of people saying their social networks are growing. Over 80% of people that we're working with, or older adults that are enjoying Rendever, are attending other community events. We've seen significant decreases in depression scores. We've seen significant decreases in pain levels. We've even seen a decrease in the need for opioid administration during routine medical procedures. And so we know that there's a ton of positive impact, and the research is supporting it. And Darren, if there's additional interest in the type of research that we're doing, I would invite Dr. Stamps to speak to that, as she's far closer to the data and the work that's being done in that space.
Really, really impressive. Thank you so much, and sorry to have asked so many questions, but
That's quite all right.
Wishing you every continued success.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Quick.
Oh, this
David?
has been great. Thank you,
It
David.
has been.
I would like to say thank you as well. It's always a pleasure to come on and talk about what we do. We are very passionate. We're very mission driven. Obviously, I'm sure you got that from me. And it is a pleasure and a great opportunity to share the work we're doing. So thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the great questions. And I look forward to seeing everyone hopefully again soon. Should I be invited back?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you all. Thanks, Tara.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.